You have supplied the questions, and you've supplied them well. Now I shall reward you all with answering only some of the questions. I'm not going to do all of them because then this video would take forever. Hey guys, welcome to Q&A with ANIMAT, where I will go and answer some of the most interesting questions that I have gotten all across social media, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and many more. So with all that said and done, I've got some great questions to go and answer right over here. So let's not waste any more time, and let's get things started with our first question, which is going to be coming from Brian Walsh. And Brian asks, if someone were to present a quote-unquote controversial opinion, how would you advise they present it? Well, I'm just going to start things off by saying that before I would go and fully answer that question, this is something that I have learned through trial and error. This is something that I had to learn through my own experiences, and this is something in which I have fallen trap into, and that's why some of my controversial opinions in the past are not necessarily taken as seriously as they are now. So, with that said, I think the best advice that I could give in terms of conveying a controversial opinion, because as you guys know, I have had plenty of experience with that, I'd say don't let the factor that it's a controversial opinion get the best of you. And what I mean by that is just don't let the factor that it is controversial be something that's the highlight of your entire discussion. It's your opinion, so make it about your opinion. So just focus on that. And from there, it will allow you to treat it no differently than any of the other opinions that you would have. It doesn't matter if your opinion conveys or resonates with the majority or just with a very small minority, because the point is that you want to go and bring up your opinion on a certain subject. So as long as you just focus on that, then you're perfectly fine, because all that you're doing is just expressing your opinion and nothing more. Because when you do focus on the controversial element of it, then at that point, that's when your opinion would go and start to derail, because that's when you would go and focus less on the actual opinion itself, and then that's when you would go and probably get a little more emotionally invested into it, and that's where things can really fall into the elements where it would highly get controversial, not just on the opinion itself, but also in the way that you would go and express it. So as long as you're just focusing on expressing your opinion, then that's honestly the biggest crime that you have done. Express your opinion and nothing more. Because at that point, if there is going to be someone that's going to come up and be upset of the fact that you've expressed your controversial opinion, because let's be honest, on the edge of the internet, there will be those people no matter what, then honestly, that person can only blame themselves and not you, because all you've done, again, is just express your opinion. Because this has happened to me plenty of times when I would go and casually bring up an animated feature that I don't necessarily like, and I would use it as an example of bad animation or what not to do in animation. And from there, there's always going to be a handful of people that will get triggered, and they're going to, instinctively get on the keyboard to go and say, but I like the movie, yo. I actually think that it's good. And I mean, that's fine, whatever. If you have your opinion, that's perfectly okay. But as much as it is okay for you to have your opinion, it's also okay for me to have my opinion. So it's not necessarily something to get all upset about, because at the end of the day, it's just an opinion and nothing more. It's not like it's really going to affect the subject that you're talking about in general. So, and I'm just like, regardless of who says the controversial opinion, that's just one voice, and that's it. So as long as you're not necessarily hurting people in the process, as long as you're not going towards a discriminatory route, and that also does play a factor if you do focus more on the controversial aspect than on the opinion aspect, then honestly, you're perfectly fine. Just make sure that the biggest crime that you would commit is just express your opinion and nothing more. And also, on a side note, I would like to add as well that there is something that for me, it is a massive pet peeve, and it really does get annoying when people do that. It's whenever people would express their controversial opinion, and they would go and pander to the other side. Like, they would go and say, oh, but if you like the thing, or if you don't like the thing, then that's perfectly okay, because everyone's got their own opinions, and we should respect each other's opinion, and do, like, that little monologue and stuff like that. And it gets so annoying, because for me, I feel like that's more insulting than it actually is helping the situation, because it feels like you're talking down to your audience. You're kind of treating them as if they're like 5 years old, or they're just completely dumb. Don't do that. Because the thing is that this is something that everyone should know. Yes, everyone is entitled to their opinion, and it's okay to have their opinion. That should be common knowledge that everyone should have in the first place. You don't have to talk people down and try to make them feel good about themselves by doing so. Just express your opinion. Just focus on that. Forget what everyone else is saying. Now, with that said, it is perfectly okay to bring up the fact that there is something that is widely loved or widely hated. Like, you can do that, but only for the purpose of adding context to the subject that you are talking about in general. Don't go out and try to really encompass your opinion. Don't let that factor overshadow your opinion. So that should be my advice onto the element of expressing controversial opinions, because at the end of the day, regardless of which side you would be, whether it be with the majority or the minority, all you're doing is just express your opinion, nothing more. So as long as you keep focusing on just expressing your opinion, then you should be perfectly fine. Now, moving on to the second question that I have, it is going to be from JF the Lolzor, and JF asks, let's say you could only review one more movie for classic reviews. What would it be? You know, that's actually a very good question, and it took me some time to actually think about. And one thing is for certain, I don't want to go and review one of those movies that would be considered like the worst of the worst. If I would have to make a grand finale for ANIMAT'S classic reviews, I would rather do one for a movie that's like one of the best ever, like the complete opposite of it. So something that I would give a 10 out of 10 all around. And I know that it is getting harder to go and find one that's like that, because I've already reviewed many of my favorite movies and many of what people consider to be the best. Like, I've already done a review of something like Fantasia or Spirited Away or The Lion King. But I would definitely go and do one where I want to end things off on what many people would consider to be one of the best animated features of all time. So something that I have yet to go and review, at least by the time that I am recording this. You never know in the future if I've already done that. You know, something like maybe Beauty and the Beast, for example, or maybe end off on like one of the most legendary ones, like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or maybe like another Studio Ghibli. Actually, oh my god, I think I got the perfect idea. Oh, this would actually be great, though. Okay, you know what? Scratch that. I think I got the perfect animated movie if the day would come that I would finish off ANIMAT'S classic reviews. I would do a second chance for My Neighbor Totoro. Because the thing with My Neighbor Totoro is that is actually the first ever ANIMAT'S classic review. And a lot of people don't necessarily like that review because my opinion on it does seem pretty poorly handled. And I'm gonna be very honest, even I do agree as well that the review is not necessarily all that great. And I would say the reason for that is because back then, when I did review My Neighbor Totoro, It's because I didn't necessarily have all that much knowledge on Studio Ghibli in the first place. That, believe it or not, that was actually before the days that I would be fully exposed to many, if not all, the Studio Ghibli films, and I would go and check them out one by one and also do my entire animation look back on Studio Ghibli. And also, like, this was like many years ago, and I think it's safe to say that I have fully grown as a film critic. So considering that aspect and that my knowledge on Studio Ghibli is far greater than it ever was in the past, I think it would be a great opportunity for me to go and fully give a second chance to My Neighbor Totoro, where I wouldn't just like re-review it, but I would also go and check out like the original version, like watch the best version possible, watch it with Japanese subtitles, and to fully give it a second chance and not do that bullcrap thing of like giving it two different ratings, like a regular rating or a rating for kids. I don't know what the fridge I was thinking back then. But like to give it one concrete review. And I'll be very honest, even to this day, My Neighbor Totoro is a film that I would like to give a second chance to, you know, to rewatch it and to fully inspect if I have more appreciation for it now than I did in the past, because it actually did happen where there is a review, there is a movie that I've reviewed many years ago, and rewatching it now, I have a lot more of an appreciation for it. It happened with the original How to Train Your Dragon. It definitely happened with Fantastic Mr. Fox. So I would definitely do it for My Neighbor Totoro for the sake of giving it a second chance. And I think it would be like a perfect finale, because like I would start things off with My Neighbor Totoro, and then I would end things off with My Neighbor Totoro to see how I have grown as a film critic and how I have grown in my analysis on the movie itself. It would be like the remake of Animation Look Back Disney Animation, where not only is it to go back into the history of Disney, but to also prove how I have grown as a content creator as well. So I think that would be the best option to do, a second chance for My Neighbor Totoro. Alright, so the next question that I do have is actually going to be coming from Joe Draghi. And Joe asks me, here's a question for your next Q&A video, Matt. What is your favorite British animated film? Well, honestly, I actually do have a lot of them, because there are plenty of great British animated features out there. Like, of course, a lot of people would say a lot of the Aardman ones, like Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and there are a lot of the older ones as well that are definitely great and often considered to be one of animation's best. Like, I love Animal Farm, that's definitely an underrated movie. I definitely like Watership Down, but if I would have to go and pick a favorite of mine, it would definitely be The Beatles' Yellow Submarine, because that one, I would even go as far and say that it's actually one of my favorite non-Disney animated features ever. Like, one of my favorite animated features, period. Because it definitely has a lot of elements that I really do enjoy. The animation, of course, like, it's one of the very rare animated features that I consider it to be not just like cartoon, but pretty much art in itself. The imagery that they present, that's very colorful, very psychedelic. I love the art style of the film. I'm a huge fan of the Beatles, so the music in there is excellent. It's fantastic. And even a bit of the story itself, where it has a bit of an Alice in Wonderland vibe, where it is more psychedelic. It is a lot more nonsensical, where it's living in its own world, it's run by its own rules, but it's definitely a lot of fun, and you do get to meet a lot of really enjoyable characters along the way, including the Beatles themselves. So I would definitely go with the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. Definitely my favorite animated film that ever came out of England. Okay, so the next question that I got is going to be coming from Olivia. And Olivia asks me, if you could choose one animated Disney film to be re-released in theaters, which film would you pick and why? I'm gonna be very honest, that's actually a very easy question, and I have to go with my favorite movie, Fantasia. Mainly because out of all the Disney films out there, this is the one that could really take advantage the most of the recent technology that we would have. I mean, of course, the beautiful animation would be greatly presented on the big screen, especially now that we do have the technology to make it fully remastered, and we can have the highest quality possible with it, rather it be like 1080p, or I think like we're at 4K right now. But also, I think the main reason would be because of the music. Because ever since the release of Fantasia, I think it's safe to say that the technology for audio in cinemas, they have greatly evolved and they have greatly improved. And I could totally see Fantasia really take advantage to go beyond the 5.1 surround sound or 7.1 surround sound and really make the music feel like it is everywhere, to really advance what they have originally done for the original 1940 Roadshow. I think that Fantasia can take full advantage of being re-released on the big screen. And I know that they've done that recently, but why not go and give it a bit of a wider release so that everyone can go and experience it? Because I think that did happen a few years ago, and I didn't have the opportunity to go and check it out myself, mainly because there's no screening near me that would actually show the new Fantasia, but I would definitely be down to see a newly enhanced Fantasia that would fully take advantage not only of the big screen, but to really take advantage of the audio that would just go everywhere, to go beyond what Walt Disney originally intended for the art of Fantasia. Okay, so the next question that I have is going to be from Mackenzie Taylor, and Mackenzie asks me, what do you think of the original content on Disney Plus? Well, I think nobody would be surprised if I say that yes, I did get Disney Plus on opening day, or when it first got released. And so far, I am enjoying some of the original content that they are bringing out on Disney Plus, or at least the ones that I am watching, because so far, or at least as I am recording this, and by the way, actually, I should like to put up a big disclaimer that as I am recording this, it's only been around a week since Disney Plus has officially been released, so it is still fresh out of the oven, it is still brand new, and in terms of the original content, they have only released a couple of episodes so far, so it could be possible that my opinion has changed since then. So consider this as my first impression more so than my overall feelings on the new content on Disney Plus. So with that said, I would like to start out by saying that one thing that I really do enjoy in terms of the original content that they're bringing out is the Pixar Spark Shorts, because those animated shorts, not only are they highly creative, but wow, some of them are surprisingly powerful. Like, they do actually supply a very powerful message that you don't see in any other animated projects, and I definitely do applaud their efforts, plus the fact that you do have some amazing animation coming from Pixar, so it definitely is fantastic on that front, so I really do enjoy those a lot. Then there is another thing that I am watching, of course, probably what is my most anticipated show on Disney Plus is actually the Imagineering story, and I am currently watching that right now, and I will say that it is a very well-crafted documentary. It is very straightforward, and it really goes in depth into the history of not just Disneyland, but the entirety of the Disney parks and the journey of how Walt Disney wanted to create his own theme park and how the Disney company really expanded from there. My only criticism with it, though, is just the fact that it is very simple of a documentary. And this is going to sound weird in terms of a criticism, but my problem with it is that it doesn't necessarily have an identity of its own. While yes, it is nice that it is simple and straightforward, but it is a little too simple where it feels like it is just a very basic documentary where it doesn't feel like it has an identity of its own, where it doesn't necessarily have something where it stands out as a documentary, where it doesn't necessarily have its own personality. And it is kind of surprising because usually with documentaries by Leslie Iwerks, she would usually do a great job with that, especially in the past with documentaries like the Iwerks one, which is actually her grandfather, and also the Pixar story as well. So it is kind of surprising and a bit disappointing that it does feel a bit bland, but again, it is very well made. It is a very informative documentary, and if you're ever interested in the Disney parks, then I highly recommend you go check that out. And then, of course, yes, I am currently watching The Mandalorian, and it is a really, really good show. I wouldn't necessarily say it's great. I wouldn't go as far and say that it's like the best thing that ever came out of Star Wars since the original trilogy or whatever, but I will say it's actually very good. It looks really good, like the visuals are absolutely phenomenal, very stylized, has a very, it actually does stay true to the tone of Star Wars, and even the look of it as well, where we do have a mix of practical effects and CGI, so they did very well with it. Great action, some very interesting characters as well, even though we only have about like 3 established characters, where we got the bounty hunter himself, the Mandalorian, and of course, the world-famous Baby Yoda. But there is something, though, that I would like to say, and I don't know if this is just me, but I definitely feel like with the Mandalorian, it feels so much like Samurai Jack in terms of the aesthetic, in terms of the tone of it. It very much is similar to the feeling of Samurai Jack. And the only criticism that I really would have with The Mandalorian is just the fact that it is a little bit slow, but it is still very well made. It definitely is action-packed, and it definitely does give you your good fill of Star Wars. So The Mandalorian is something that I would highly recommend to go and check out if you do have Disney+. So those are my 3 shows that I am watching right now, or at least in terms of original content on Disney+. But I will say so far, I am very pleased with it, and I do feel like it definitely is worth the investment, and I can't wait to see what other original content that they have coming out. Now, the next question that I have is going to be from Thomas Lopez, and Thomas asks me, is the new 1 or 2 score theme in your Arctic Dogs review a one-time thing or an official replacement? Now, just to give you guys a little bit of context, in case you guys have not seen my review of Arctic Dogs, spoiler alert, I really didn't like it and I gave it a 2 out of 10, but I did replace the music when you would go and see the score. Originally, I would use this epic music that came from The Lion King, which occurs during the climax of the movie, but then I ended up replacing it with the Game Over theme from Super Mario 64. And unfortunately, I would have to say that for now, yes, this is going to be the permanent replacement for that score. Now, I know it is very rare of me to go and review animated films that would be so bad that it would get a rating of either a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10, but the reason why I went and replaced it, it's not necessarily because of a creative choice, but it's mainly because of YouTube, because the last one that I used with the Lion King score, and I do agree with many people when they say that it really is something that is way better, and it does represent the epicness of like the badness of the movies that would have that kind of score. But the problem is mainly because of copyright reasons, that no matter what I would do, it would always end up with a copyright claim coming from UMG because I'm using some Lion King music on its own. So I just no longer want to go and deal with the hassle. I don't want to deal with the problems of any copyright claims, or don't want this to cause me to have like a pointless copyright strike because I only use like 15 to 10 seconds of a little piece of music from The Lion King. So ultimately, I decided to save myself from the hassle to go and replace it with the Game Over theme from Super Mario 64. Now, unless if YouTube would go and fix something with their copyright claim system, or if UMG does something where they become a lot less strict with their copyright claims and I can go and bring back that music so that I don't have any trouble with it, I would be more than happy to do so. But for now, this is going to be it. So I know a lot of people are disappointed with it. I know I'm disappointed with it as much as you guys, but it's definitely for the best so that I don't have my YouTube my YouTube channel get in trouble due to copyright. So unfortunately, it is for the best. It might be a bit of a downgrade, but at least it is something. At least it does highlight the suckiness of the bad movie that would get such a low rating of 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. Now, the next question that I have is going to be from some random guy. And yes, the user actually calls himself some random guy. And the random guy asks me, "You've mentioned in your Cats video that you've had some exposure to the stage. Would you care to elaborate more on that? If it's too personal of a question, then I don't want it to stress you out or anything." No, that is perfectly fine, and I would be more than happy to go and talk about that. Well, the thing with my stage history is actually coming from a bit of my childhood, where ever since 2003, I love performing on the stage. It originally started out as just trying something out to see if I would like it, back when I would go into summer camps and stuff like that as a kid. And the more that I got into it, the more that it really did shape up my life. The more that, like, I love the arts, I love performing, and it really did shape me to become who I am today. You know, it started out as a, sure, why not, let's see what happens kind of thing, and wouldn't you know it, it would become like such a life-changing experience that would pretty much encompass my later childhood and throughout my entire teen years. And I've just had so much fun with it, where I would always go to acting school on Saturdays, constantly rehearse for whatever show they would present for that year, and then finally performing it on stage to dozens of people, because it is a small acting school that mostly parents and people related to whoever is on stage would go and check it out. It was definitely a lot of fun, and as I said before, it really did shape up to become who I am right now, and that technically I am still being a performer just through these YouTube videos, and I'm having a lot of fun with them, and it is definitely something that I would love to continue. Like, if I ever decide to retire my YouTube channel, then I would like to go and continue doing performances, rather it be through like voiceovers or on-camera acting or even like stage performances. And I will say right now, if I do have the opportunity to go back onto the stage and, you know, do some acting for some stage shows, then I would be definitely more than happy to do it, you know, to go back into the good old days of performing on stage. It's definitely a lot of fun. And also, for those of you who are curious to know what were some of the shows that I have done in the past, well, I can definitely say that I've definitely had some experience, not just in acting, but also in dancing and a lot of singing as well. I've done some performances in Greece. I've done some King Arthur shows. One great highlight was 12 Angry Jurors, where I actually play juror number 3, which is the most antagonistic one and the one that's always the most hard-pressed to give a guilty verdict. And also, I played in Dracula. And from there, like, during my time in acting school, that's where I would go and really improve and grow as an actor, where I would only have, like, small side parts at the beginning until I eventually grew into having, like, many of the main parts. Like, I remember, like, in my first years in Greece, I would only have small roles, like playing as Duty. But then when I would grow, like, many years later, that's when I would go and get some of the bigger parts and perform as, like, Danny Zuko or as Kaneki. And even with, like, the King Arthur shows, like, I would just be one of the knights in my beginning, like, as Gawain, but then I would grow to play, like, the bigger parts, like, as Merlin or as King Arthur. So that's a little bit of my experience with theater, and for now, like, the most theatrical experiences that you would find are actually through my videos right over here, and hopefully my acting skills are still strong and that you guys are still enjoying them. Okay, so for the next question, coincidentally enough, I do have a little bit of a similar answer to that. There is going to be a little bit of a connection from before, you'll see what I mean, and this is going to be a question coming from William Dixon, and William asks me, what job would you like to do the most in an animation company? Well, if I could be very honest, it would hands down be voice acting. Now, I don't know if that would technically count as a job in an animation company, but I adore doing voice acting, and I've had some experience, believe it or not, in some voice acting jobs, and they're a lot of fun so far. I'm having a great time with them, and I would love to do more, especially for animated projects, whether it be for movies, TV shows, games, rides, or whatever. I would love to go and do more voice acting jobs, to go and voice some memorable characters. It's definitely an enjoyable time. I love doing them, so that would definitely be my pick on that. But if that doesn't necessarily count, and I would understand if some people might say that's not technically a job in an animation company, if I would go and focus on, like, some of the traditional ones there, then I think I would go and take a job as a character designer, to go and think up of the look and the new styles of, like, what the characters are going to be, and to go and think up of, like, many different creatures that would be in the movie, think up of, like, what characters are going to be in there. I think I would definitely go and be a character designer. Now, in terms of my artistic skills, I don't know if I would technically need a bit of an upgrade. Maybe I still have a long way to go as an artist in order to shape up my drawing skills or my design skills, but that would definitely be something that I would like to do if I would have to have an animation job. So that would be my answer right over there. To be a voice actor, but if not, be a character designer. Okay, so my next question that I have is going to be from Eden Rahav. And Eden asks me, as a huge of Epic Mickey, I think you mean as a huge fan of Epic Mickey, what was your favorite part of the first game? Well, to be very honest, whenever I would think about Epic Mickey, I think the first thing that would pop in my mind is the first boss battle, the fight against the It's a Small World clock tower, because I think more than anything else in the game, that's what reminds me most of Epic Mickey, or that's what I think of when I would think of Epic Mickey, because the concept is that you are Mickey Mouse inside this dark and twisted version of Disneyland. And what more dark and twisted and especially epic can you get than battling off this demented version of the It's a Small World clock tower on top of the fantastic music that you got in the background, where you would have this twisted version of the theme song. It is just perfect, and pretty much like the namesake itself, it was absolutely an epic moment. Now, I'm sure that for many people, they would go and answer that as well, that many Epic Mickey players would say their favorite moments would probably be that scene in particular. And on a side note, I would like to say that it is a little bit disappointing that the other bosses are not necessarily as epic as that. It doesn't get to that level of epicness until, like, right at the very end, when Mickey would go and confront the Shadow Blot in Dark Beauty Castle. Like, especially when you would look at some of the other places, like, especially on the Lonesome Manor level, that they decided to go and use the Mad Doctor as the boss of that one. I mean, come on, like you're in a freaking Haunted Mansion level and all you go with is the Mad Doctor? I mean, like, the whole area kind of writes itself in a dark, twisted version of Disney. It's like, you couldn't give that position to the Hatbox Ghost or something like that? No, but anyways, going back to what I'm talking about, if I wouldn't go with the It's a Small World clock tower, then I think another great moment that I would have to highlight, it would be the time when Mickey and Oswald, they were very close in having a partnership, but then Mickey, like, kind of takes his hand out and he confesses to Oswald of the mistake that he has done, that he was the one who caused the Thinner disaster in the wasteland. And that actually does really highlight something that very few people talk about with Epic Mickey, is that Epic Mickey has one of the best written Mickey Mouses ever. Because the way that Mickey was written, he's like this fully fleshed out character. It's like a really upgraded version of Mickey in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, where now, like, he can communicate, where he can express a lot more things, and he really goes beyond his usual personality that he would portray in cartoons. So that really was a moment where you do see the regret that Mickey has, and knowingly throughout the whole time that he was the one who caused this entire disaster, and throughout the game that he would go and look at the consequence to his naive little actions that he caused at the very beginning, and you see the sorrow in his face and you see the full-on regret of it. So that's definitely a great highlight and one of my favorite parts in the game. So definitely those two moments to go and answer your question. And so finally, we are going to go and end things off with the final question with the graphical expert. And the graphical expert asks me, dude, how do you keep your fedora looking so fresh and clean? Well, if you are referring to this fedora in general, well, to answer that question, I would have to say, don't wear it as often as you can. Like, only wear this for very rare occasions. Like, the orange fedora, for example, this is actually only a part of a costume. Like, I don't necessarily go out wearing this orange fedora in general. I only use it for on-camera purposes, like whenever I would go and record for any of my videos, like this one, for example. So the reason why it looks so fresh is mainly because I don't really go and use it a whole lot, or I would go outside and wear it and then sweat it out, and that's when it would be like all gross and not really that usable, and it would seem a little bit more worn as usual, like the old orange fedora, because let's be honest, I was kind of due for a new fedora anyways. So that would be the best advice that I would give, is to go and not wear it as much as possible. And I will confess that there was a period in my life where it would be extremely rare, or it would be impossible of me to go out without wearing a fedora on my head. I used to have a phase where I was totally into fedoras and wearing a lot of fedoras all the time, that I always think that it makes me look cool no matter what. But nowadays I have tamed down a bit on the fedoras, and for the most part I only wear like just this one for video purposes, or I would go out and wear a fedora for fancier occasions. Like if I would have like a family gathering in a very special restaurant or something like that, then maybe I would go and bring out the fedora or something like that. But other than that, I have calmed down in the fedora phase, and I would be wearing other hats, like whether it be baseball caps or snapbacks and stuff like that. I don't go out wearing something like this. In fact, I would highly advise anyone to not go out dressed up like this. I know a lot of people criticize me for my fashion sense, but believe me, I know. I am fashionably handicapped. I know that I am dressed up like a neckbeard, but it is not because I am a neckbeard. I am totally not. It is mainly because I don't know how to dress myself, and the problem is, I don't necessarily care, so that's the big thing about it. But yes, but at least I am trying to work on it, at least I am improving it, and at least I'm not going out wearing just this random t-shirt and wearing a weird fedora, you know? At least I'm not going as far as that, so I am taking baby steps. But you're not really gonna go and see much improvement in my videos, I can guarantee you that in terms of fashion. Okay, so with all that said and done, I think that should be all the questions for today. And I would like to go and say thank you guys so much for watching. It has been a blast to go and answer these questions. And on a side note, I would like to add that if you guys would like to go and ask a question in the hopes that maybe it'll get answered in a future episode of Q&A with Animat, then all you have to do is just go and ask, regardless of where you could go and ask me, rather it be in the comment section on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media, anywhere else, by email or whatever. We'll see if I will go and answer them. So with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!